the Lightning Process podcast. Using the tools of the mind-body connection for health and happiness. And a very warm welcome from me, your host, Dr. Phil Parker. Hi and welcome to this episode of the podcast where we're going to be talking about a particular set of conditions, chronic fatigue and ME, which the Lightning Process has worked a lot with and done a lot of research on. The Lightning Process is quite known for its work with these illnesses, but it actually wasn't designed for these illnesses specifically. It just happened that people with these illnesses came to us and said, do you think you can help, since you seem to help other people who are stuck? Since then, we've been quite well known for working with this condition because of the amount of people we've seen and the research. And in this podcast, I'm going to be presenting some of the very powerful, inspirational stories of people who've struggled with this illness, found no solutions, and ended up at the Lightning Process store, and it's completely transformed their lives. So this is what we're going to be covering. The episode starts with a little conversation about, which we've had before, but it's worth reminding, of the issues around talking about health and changing health, not using drugs, not using surgery, but using the mind-body connection, using the way we use the brain to change our physiology, and the issues that has caused because of people's fundamental misunderstanding. So that's where we're going to begin. Then we're going to move on to 3 really fascinating case histories, which I hope you'll enjoy. But just before we play those, there's one thing that constantly comes up, which is the Lightning Process considers chronic fatigue and ME to be real physical illnesses. It doesn't consider them to be all in the mind. And yet, that's one thing that people will often accuse the Lightning Process of saying. If you've listened so far to this podcast, you'll know that we talk a lot about neurophysiology and the fact that the hormones and the brain and the immune system are all deeply connected. The trouble is, as soon as you mention the word neurology, or the brain, or the mind, or the mind-body connection, people often immediately leap into an assumption that we're talking about mental illness or emotional well-being. We're not. With chronic fatigue and ME, we address the neurophysiology, the changes that have happened as a result of the illness in your physiology. Once that's recovered and back to normal, we find people can live completely, perfectly normal, healthy lives that are indistinguishable from the rest of the general population. But again, to reiterate, the Lightning Process does not say the illness is in the mind, but it does say the solution is in changing the pathways in your brain so that it can reset your physiology, resetting your endocrine system, your immune system, your blood sugar level systems, your gut system, everything. If you can get inside the machine and actually press the reset button, which is what the Lightning Process will help you to do, then the body can bounce back to health. Listen to these stories and see what you think. We start off with Georgina's story. When I saw her 9 years ago, I flew out to Dubai to work with her, and we took a video recording of her, which starts off the next section. Last year, I met up with her again, and we did another recording just to see how she'd been getting on. So that's 9 years later. So that follows on. So you can see what happened. Okay, if you'd like to say for the camera your first name.
Georgina.
And your age.
20.
And how long have you had ME for?
I had the first glimpses of it when I got glandular fever when I was 16.
Right, okay. So you've had it 4 years?
So
on and off.
Very badly for the last 5 months.
Last 5 months. And what's it stopped you doing in the last 5 months?
I had to pull out of university when I just started in my first year, and just getting out, doing everything.
Okay. So we visited you in sunny Dubai, and we did a Lightning Process, and we started 5 days ago. And what change have you noticed?
Everything. I now can do whatever I want. Actually, I'm playing tennis later. I've been shopping. I've been on the beach. I went to tennis last night of the finals, watching Federer. And the other guy, I can't remember his name, Spanish guy who won.
And last week, how possible was any of those things?
Not possible.
How much activity were you doing a day last week?
Last week, I tried to go for a little walk each day sort of 10 minutes, and then maybe go and have a coffee or something, and that was it.
So for the last 4 or 5 days, you've been going out, doing things?
Constantly.
So do you have ME anymore?
No.
Okay, and will you ever have it again?
No.
Great. And if somebody's watching this video and they've got ME, what might you say to them as advice, or what you think about the lightning process, or how they need to be, or any suggestions?
I'd say definitely do it if you really want to get better, and it's something where you have to put the effort in. You do actually have to do something, but you get results.
And is the effort achievable?
Yeah, it's easy, really easy, but you just have to do it.
So 9 years later, as I said, I met up with Georgina again, and she kindly gave us another interview. This is what she said.
So hi there, my name's Georgina, and I did the lightning process 9 years ago, which is amazing to think it's been that long, because I've done so much since then, and I've been fantastically well, and, you know, having a life I could only dream of, really, when I was ill, and sort of better than it was before I got ill originally. I have, since I got better, I went back to university and completed university. Sort of been working for a big corporate, a global business. So I completed the 3-year graduate scheme with them. And then they posted me to Southeast Asia for a 15-month assignment, which again was absolutely fantastic. Completely well, you know, traveling everywhere, doing more than I could have dreamt of, and sleeping, you know, less than what you would expect, and still being perfectly well. If you're thinking about doing the lightning process, just do it. I remember saying 9 years ago when I did a video, I said, you know, as a client or someone who's learning to do it, you need to put the work in yourself. You've got to put in some effort. So, you know, you've got to want to get better, and you've got to do what you're told to do, but it's really easy, and it's absolutely fantastic, and it works brilliantly. And as I even said way back then, on the first day, I think I was I could walk about 20 minutes a day and talk to someone for about 20 minutes. I was on this, you know, incredibly healthy diet and having all sorts of, you know, seeing the top people and all the rest of it. But I was, yeah, as I say, only walking about 20 minutes a day. On the second day, I was walking around shopping centres and buying all sorts of amazing things I could only have dreamt of from my bed before that. And the third day, I was playing tennis and drinking alcohol, which was just unheard of, before the lightning process. So do it. It's absolutely brilliant, and it's a tool for life. So, you know, now, 9 years on, I can use it if I need it, and it's absolutely fantastic.
The next story is from Imogen, and I heard about Imogen because she sent a message anonymously saying that she'd been massively sceptical before the lightning process, and it had completely changed her life. Once the book was published, she read the anonymous quote from her, and she got in contact just to let me know how brilliantly she'd been doing. So I think you'll find her story very interesting.
My name is Imogen Adkins. I'm 39 years old, and I've had 2 6-year bouts of ME during my life. But the lightning process sorted me out for good in March 2011. So I've been doing well for over 4 years now. Thank you, Phil. I was diagnosed with ME in 1991 for the first time when I was 15, after I'd had a rapid series of nasty viruses that had left me struggling to understand English and unable to walk more than a few metres, really. I was very sensitive to light and sound, and for the first few months at least I was sleeping an enormous amount, and then developed insomnia. As I said, I was initially diagnosed by my GP, and then I was cared for by a consultant in London. I was lucky in that graded activity therapy worked well for me. It worked well enough to get me back to part-time school, and then on to university, where I made a full recovery by the end of my second year. But unfortunately, an extended period of upheaval and stress led to me relapsing in 2005. I had many of the same symptoms, things like poor sleep, the old sensation of feeling weighted to the bed, feeling weighted to a chair, it being impossible to concentrate. I had worrying blackouts in awareness. I would sort of come to in a supermarket and not know why I was there or how I got there or anything like that. It was quite scary. But unlike last time, I also realised that I had several bad habits which were aggravating my symptoms. Things like perfectionism, over-conscientiousness, catastrophizing, a tendency to assume inappropriate responsibility. I had some counselling which helped me to recognise these mindsets, but there was no physical follow-through. I was stuck. I'd heard of the lightning process in 2007 through a newspaper article, and my husband and I looked at the website, but to be honest, we were very put off because it repeatedly stressed that I was responsible for the success of my use of the lightning process. And I thought this was a cheap way of watching their backs, and I hated it. Plus, despite Phil's assertions that ME was a bona fide physical illness, it seemed to me as if his method required sufferers to take the blame for their disability. Not good. And I reasoned that if the lightning process was for real, it would work regardless of your mindset, just like medicine. So as a result, I was horribly sceptical about the testimonies, and I do mean horribly sceptical. I came up with all sorts of reasons as to why the success stories were irrelevant to me, or were just plain wrong. I thought that these people didn't really have ME to start with, or if they did, they were just on the cusp of getting well anyway, or maybe they'd been pressured into forcing themselves to be stupidly active for a while, and then were too embarrassed or too guilt-ridden to talk about crashing later on. I thought that Phil was filtering out bad comments. I thought that the screening process was cult-like and was designed to weed out the strong-minded questioners, like myself. To my mind, the lightning process just didn't have a nice vibe. But over the next 3 years or so, many trusted friends kept recommending the lightning process to me, and I kept wheeling out my reasons for not giving it a go. But there came a point where I just felt like ME was going to go on forever. And it was going to go on forever unless something changed. And that change somehow had to come from me. At this point, with impeccable timing, one of my husband's friends contacted us and really encouraged us to talk to one of his friends, a guy called Eamon Driscoll, who was training to be a lightning process practitioner. And we spoke to him, and he was great, and he encouraged us to see that not only could we assent to the rational success of the lightning process, but we could see it working for me. And that was a real turning point, a real critical juncture for us, that we could see it working for me. And Eamon said, don't wait for me to qualify, go and do the lightning process with somebody else. Don't waste another 6 months of your life. Get well now. So I found Kathy Kent, who is an amazing practitioner near me, and she has lots of great testimonies on her website. And this is where I start sounding like all the testimonies that really used to wind me up. And I might also get a bit emotional, but I'll try not to. So I spoke to Kathy, and she made sure that I was ready to do the process. And it really helped me to understand that the lightning process is like anything. You get out what you put in. It's a technique for change, and it's up to me to practice it. It's just like physio exercises. You have to do something to get the change that you want to see. And when I understood the lightning process in these terms, it meant I was no longer worried about the emphasis on personal responsibility, and I no longer associated the lightning process with blame. I learnt that my physical symptoms were caused by unconscious stress responses, which I can identify, stop and replace with something wonderful by doing the lightning process. and the body returns to normal very quickly afterwards, which is why many people, including myself, experience such rapid recovery. When I did the steps for the first time with Kathy, my husband, who was sitting in on the course, said it was like seeing me come back to life before his own eyes. The colour in my cheeks came back, my eyes became bright again, I held my head up with energy. And the way I think about it is that it was like flicking a switch inside of me. Everything just changed. And Kathy had asked me as part of the course to come to the first session prepared to do something that frightened me, so that I started to have my own evidence of success. And as one of my big fears up to this point was running, which I hadn't done since the beginning of my relapse, I came to the first session in my running shoes. And after we'd finished, my husband and I went out for a 5-minute jog, which seemed insane, but we did it. And it was so amazing that we decided to carry on and fight my limiting beliefs about backlash by going into Norwich, which was a 45-minute car trip, which at that point we'd do maybe 3 times a year. So it was a big deal. And I had a little wobble on the way there, so I did the lightning process, and within 10 minutes I'd completely forgotten about ME, I was relaxed, and we had an amazing time. So 4 years on, where am I? Well, it's a very long list, so here's a quick summary. My husband and I, we really like mountain walking, so 2 or 3 times a year we go to Scotland or Wales or the Peak District or the Lake District and go camping and climbing and all that kind of thing. Professionally, I have finished my PhD. I'm writing a theological textbook with a friend. I'm involved with a very interesting project at Yale University, so I've been to the States a couple of times for that. And my husband has come too, so that we had some time in New York, which was great. And I'm running, I'm swimming, I'm heading up a worship team at church, doing loads of things socially, just having a normal life, really. If I was to put my cynical hat back on, I would say something like, aha, but you haven't really been tested yet because you haven't had a stressful situation, or something like that. But that's not true either, because a couple of years ago I developed epilepsy, a very dangerous form of epilepsy, and that was a stressful experience, but sailed through it, no problems at all. And there's no way I'm going back to ME. In fact, if I was to give you a 1-sentence summary, it would be that I know I can do whatever I want to do. There's no fear and no fallout. Just the life I love. Thank you, Phil.
This next story is from Laura.
7 years ago, I was an incredibly active person, mad on sports. I was on the England and British ITF Taekwondo squad, training like crazy, competing in tournaments. I was even an European champion. On top of that, I had a full-time job as a police officer. My job meant that from time to time I might come into contact with people who had hepatitis. So to protect myself against this, I was advised to go to the doctors to have a vaccination, which most people who work in that environment are required to do to protect themselves. 2 days after that vaccination, I collapsed at home on the kitchen floor and I could hardly do anything. I just was zapped of all energy and life. I couldn't walk for the next 3 years really. My husband became my carer. After being such an active person all of my life, it was just a living nightmare, one that I couldn't see a way out of. I tried so many things to get better, completely stripped my diet back, went all organic, I did cognitive behavioural therapy. The doctors even had me on epilepsy medication at one stage, which was horrible. I'd get so far towards getting my health back and then just seemed to be constantly taking steps backwards. I just couldn't get better. And then I heard about the lightning process through the rugby player Austin Healey. I heard him speaking about it, and I thought about it a lot, mulled it over, and then I just came to realise that I had nothing to lose. I can honestly say that the lightning process totally changed my life and that of my family. I used it consistently and found that soon I was able to do everyday things without having to think about them. It was incredibly empowering. I returned to work, back to arresting and interviewing people, back to a life full of sports and activities. And now I live a full, happy, healthy life with my family. We've got a beautiful 2-year-old son, which I never imagined, feeling the way I felt before. But now it's just fantastic. I've done some amazing stuff since the lightning process, and I would recommend it to anyone. It's absolutely life-changing.
So there you have 3 of the literally thousands and thousands of cases that we've seen. We've seen so many people with this condition. And what's fascinating is there is a conversation out there that says you can't recover from this illness. It's just not true. People do recover. Here's 3 examples out of, as I say, thousands. If you want to know more about how the lightning process works with these issues, I'll do another podcast on that in the future, or just get in touch with us. I hope you found this interesting. And if you're dealing with this really difficult condition, I hope that's made you think, well, if somebody can make change, they may not be exactly the same as me, because almost no 2 cases are alike with this illness. But if you hear something in that, the struggle they had, the issues they had, and the fact that they turned it around having tried so many other things, then maybe it's time for you to look at the lightning process and see what changes you can make with it. Have a look at it, see what you think. The Lightning Process Podcast. Using the tools and the mind-body connection for health and happiness. If you'd like to know more, please visit us at lightningprocess.co.uk.